My name is Dean Holt. I'm 42 years old and I serve as a major in the United States Army. I've worn this uniform for over 2 decades, and I've always believed that the hardest battles would be fought overseas. Turns out the most painful one was waiting for me at home. I was stationed in Afghanistan when this story began. It was a deployment like many others, filled with structure repetition and the kind of mental noise that helps drown out what you miss. Every morning I'd wake up, drink the same bitter coffee, scan the same desert horizon, and count down the days until I could fly home to my wife and 2 daughters. They were my anchor, the calm I carried into every mission. Back home we had routines. My wife Lara managed everything with grace. Bills got paid. The girls made it to soccer and back. She'd send me short video clips of our youngest making silly faces and our oldest practicing a debate speech in the kitchen. I saved every one of them. I watched them before bed like prayers, little reminders of what I was protecting. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. We'd been married 15 years. We'd been through 2 deployments, 1 miscarriage, and 1,000 little disappointments neither of us ever let grow into anything bigger. We didn't yell. We didn't cheat. We didn't give up. At least that's what I believed. About 3 months into my deployment, Lara started sounding different on the phone. Shorter calls. Less laughter. She said she was tired. Said handling everything alone was harder this time. I believed her. I told her I appreciated everything she was doing. I promised her it would all feel worth it soon. Looking back, there were signs. Strange pauses during our calls. Missed for sea times. Messages she said didn't go through. I chalked it up to time zones and bad Wi-Fi. I didn't want to think there was anything else. You don't want to believe your safe place might be cracking while you're oceans away. I wish I'd asked more questions. I wish I'd pushed harder when something felt off. But in the Army, hesitation can get people killed. At home, it just makes it easier for someone to lie to your face and smile while doing it. And Lara, she smiled a lot. It started with little things. Missed calls. A few late replies to messages. A skipped weekend video chat because she said the girls had a sleepover and she was too tired to talk. I didn't push. I told myself she was juggling work, parenting, and loneliness while I was out here doing what I trained to do. Lara always told me she wasn't built for the military lifestyle. She said that early in our marriage, I promised her I'd never let the job come before her. I thought I'd kept that promise. Every time I deployed, I tried to make it easier. I left checklists. I left notes. I called every chance I got. She said she appreciated it. But this time felt different. She didn't say she missed me. She didn't ask how I was sleeping. The conversations started to feel like obligations instead of connections. Like she was reading from a script she didn't believe in anymore. One night she broke down on a call. Said she felt invisible. That no one at her job understood. That the other moms looked at her like she was less of a parent just because she had to carry everything alone. I listened. I told her she was doing more than enough. I reminded her that we'd been through this before. She said this time was different. The distance wasn't just miles. It was emotional. She said she didn't feel like she had a partner anymore. That was the night she said it. She couldn't handle the distance. And I, like an idiot, thought she meant emotionally. I thought she meant she was lonely, not done. After that call, I felt sick for days. My stomach stayed twisted in a knot I couldn't explain. My bunkmate asked me if I was okay. I told him it was just the heat, the sand, the food. I didn't want to say what I really thought. That maybe something was breaking back home and I didn't know how to stop it. The next few weeks were a blur. I buried myself in routine. I volunteered for extra shifts. Anything to keep my mind off the silence growing between me and the woman I still called my wife. Sometimes she didn't pick up when I called. Sometimes the girls answered and said Mom was out for groceries or asleep early. I believed them. They sounded normal. Laughing, asking when I'd bring them souvenirs. They never let on that anything was wrong. And maybe they didn't know yet. Or maybe they were trying to protect me. I started to notice changes in Laura's social media. She posted less. Her photos were of the girls, not of her. No anniversary shout-out. No tagged photos with mutual friends. It felt like she was erasing herself, or maybe erasing us. I told myself not to overthink. People grow quiet when they're overwhelmed. That doesn't always mean they're hiding something. But deep down, I felt it. I felt something slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to name it. I didn't want to accuse her of anything. I didn't want to be that guy. The jealous soldier blaming his wife for struggling while he's off playing hero. I convinced myself that she was just going through a phase. That once I got home, we'd reset. We'd go back to our date nights and lazy Sunday mornings. But the truth is, sometimes when someone says they're tired, what they really mean is they're done trying. And I didn't hear that until it was too late. I logged into the account like I had a dozen times before. Just a quick check while the base was quiet. It was our daughter's college fund, something I'd been adding to since the day our first was born. It wasn't just money. It was proof that even though I was gone, I was thinking ahead for them. That even in the chaos of war, I was building something stable back home. But the number was wrong. I stared at it, blinking like my eyes were playing tricks on me. It showed 0. Not low. Not transferred. Empty. Completely gone. At first I thought maybe I logged into the wrong account. I tried again. Same result. Then I told myself maybe it was a glitch. Military systems mess up all the time. Maybe it was maintenance or a display issue. But the balance hadn't changed in over a month. Someone had drained it. I felt my hands go cold. There was no adrenaline, no clear plan like in the field. Just static in my head and this overwhelming panic rising up my spine. I clicked into the transaction history and it got worse. Withdrawals. Not just one, but multiple. Spread out over weeks. Like someone had been slowly bleeding it dry while I wasn't looking. I called Lara. Straight to voicemail. I messaged her. Nothing. I waited a few hours, tried again. Finally, she texted back saying she'd look into it and that it was probably some bank error. She sounded casual. Too casual. I knew her tells. I'd been married to her 15 years. When she was nervous, she talked too much. When she was hiding something, she said too little. And now she said almost nothing. The worst part wasn't just the missing money. It was the way my mind went dark with possibilities. Was she being blackmailed? Was she covering for someone? Had she done this herself from across the world? All I could do was stare at a screen and try to breathe through the fire in my chest. I couldn't hold my girls. I couldn't walk into the bank. I couldn't do anything except wait and watch my entire world shift under me. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a glitch. This was deliberate. Someone took that money. And I was starting to believe that someone was the same person who used to fall asleep beside me every night. I finally got through to my oldest daughter after 2 days of silence. Her voice cracked before she even said hello. That alone told me something was wrong. She's the strong one, the one who always says she's fine, even when she isn't. But this time she didn't pretend. She told me the house was empty. Not just quiet, empty. Furniture gone. Photos off the walls. The front door locked, with a real estate sign posted out front. I thought maybe they were renovating. Maybe Lara was moving them somewhere closer to family without telling me. But the truth was worse. Lara had sold the house. Quietly. Without discussion. Without warning. She packed a moving truck while the girls were at school and left town. My daughter found out from a neighbor who saw strangers touring what used to be our living room. I asked where she went. My daughter didn't know for sure. only that her mom said she needed a break, that she was starting fresh and not to worry. But then came the name. A man. Someone I'd never heard of. Someone Lara apparently met through mutual business, whatever that meant. I felt something twist in my chest I didn't know how to name. Rage. Shame. Disbelief. All rolled into this weight that settled right behind my ribs. Not only had she taken the money, she'd taken our home. And she hadn't just walked out, she'd rewritten the whole story of our life together and handed it to someone new. The girls were staying with friends. No stability. No clarity. No goodbye. Just gone. I was 8,000 miles away and completely useless. All I could do was nod through a phone call and pretend like my training meant something in moments like this. I kept it together. That's what you do when you wear the uniform. You don't panic. You don't cry in front of your kids. You breathe through the betrayal and tell them it's going to be okay even when it's not. But after I hung up, I sat alone in the corner of a supply tent and stared at the dirt for a long time. That was the night I stopped trying to make excuses for her. She hadn't cracked under pressure. She hadn't lost her way. She had chosen to disappear. And she took everything with her but the girls. What I didn't expect was how quickly my daughters stepped up. They didn't sit around waiting for answers or feel sorry for themselves. They saw what happened and decided they weren't going to let it end there. It started with my youngest, the quiet one. She noticed Mom had a second phone. One she always kept face down and never answered around them. She mentioned it to her sister, who started paying attention to the small things. The way Mom always stepped outside to take calls. How she suddenly had packages delivered to a different address. They started asking questions, not to her face but to people who might know something. One of their classmates had a cousin in Florida. That cousin had seen their mom's name on a lease application. It didn't make sense. Why would she sign a lease if she was just taking a break? So they kept digging. They tracked the moving company, called and pretended to be confirming a follow-up shipment. The driver, thinking he was helping, mentioned dropping off furniture in a gated community near Fort Lauderdale. That was their first real clue. From there, it turned into something like a mission. They mapped everything out. Social media accounts, email trails, even local property listings. My oldest used a burner account to message a real estate agent who had shown the house Mom moved into. Said she was looking for something similar. The agent sent over a listing, same address, same layout, same photos. They knew where she was, but they still didn't know who she was with. That came from the bank. My oldest called, pretending to be Laura, asking about a joint investment inquiry. She was denied access, obviously, but the rep slipped and confirmed another name was attached to recent transfers. A man neither of them had ever heard of. At that point, they brought it to me. Every note, every name, every address. I just listened on the other end of the call and couldn't believe what I was hearing. 2 teenage girls had done more in 3 weeks than I could have done in 3 months from where I was. I felt something shift. Not in the story, but in me. They weren't just my kids anymore. They were my team, and they weren't going to let their mother walk away clean. Once they had the address, they didn't stop. My daughters kept pulling the thread. What started as curiosity turned into a full-blown investigation. They began searching everything tied to their mom's name: corporate records, bank statements, online profiles. What they found didn't just confirm what she had done. It revealed a whole new layer. She had opened a shell company 6 months earlier, registered in Florida under a vague consulting name. The business had no website, no office, and no clients, but thousands of dollars flowed through it. The college fund account wasn't just emptied. It had been funneled into that company disguised as business capital. The girls found PDF invoices in her email, made-up services, generic amounts, all linked to bank accounts in her name, and in some cases the name of the man she was now living with. One line item stood out: an equipment fee labeled Phase 3 expansion. My oldest searched that exact phrase, and found it copied word for word from an online scam template. That's when we knew. She wasn't just running from her family. She was running a con, and she used our daughter's future to do it. I took the evidence to JAG and asked what could be done. They looped in military legal services and sent me to a civilian fraud attorney. Within a week, we filed a financial abuse report. The girls handed over every digital trail they'd uncovered. Emails, documents, IP logs, even screenshots of late-night transfers. Within 10 days, a judge froze her account. All of them. The business account, her personal savings, even the joint investment she tried to shift into someone else's name. She called me once furious, said I'd ruined her life. I didn't yell. I just told her she did that on her own. The case moved fast. Florida state prosecutors picked it up. She was charged with misappropriation of marital assets, wire fraud, and falsifying financial records. For the first time in months, I felt something close to control. My daughters didn't just expose a lie. They dismantled an entire scheme. While their mother tried to rewrite history, they made sure the truth had a paper trail. They didn't just survive what she did. They held her accountable. And they did it with nothing but their instincts, a laptop, and the quiet kind of courage no one ever teaches. I came home a month earlier than scheduled. My CO approved my request for early separation after everything came out. No one questioned the decision. After 22 years in uniform, I folded it up one last time and boarded a plane as just Dad. The girls met me at the airport. They looked older than when I'd left, and not just in the way kids grow up fast. They carried themselves differently, stronger, wiser. We didn't talk much on the drive home. Just held hands and let the silence mean something good for once. We stayed with my sister for the first few weeks while we figured things out. The house was gone, but the people weren't. And people, I realized, can rebuild anything. We got a rental in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it had enough rooms and a backyard that didn't need too much work. The girls painted their own walls. I built the shelves myself. Money was tight at first. The legal fees took a bite, but we were able to recover most of what was stolen. The frozen assets covered the college fund. Not every dollar, but enough to restore the future we planned for. The court approved restitution. Monthly payments from her account. Small and slow, but symbolic. Proof that not everything she tried to take was lost. The criminal case against her moved through the system. She never once apologized. Said she felt trapped. Said she was just trying to survive. But survival doesn't come with forged documents and fake companies. And the court saw that too. She was convicted on 2 counts of financial fraud. Avoided jail time by cutting a deal, but she'll be paying for years. Community service, supervised parole, and the public record. Her name, her choices, her damage, all written down for anyone to see. I thought I'd feel victorious, but all I felt was tired. Justice doesn't always feel like a win. Sometimes it just feels like the end of something that should have never started. But it gave us a clean slate, a place to begin again. The girls are doing okay. My oldest got accepted into a state university. My youngest wants to study law. She says people need someone who knows how to spot a lie before it costs someone everything. I believe she'll be good at it. As for me, I'm learning how to live without the structure of base schedules and deployment clocks. I make breakfast most mornings. I walk the dog in the afternoon. I fix things around the house that don't need fixing, just so I can feel useful. I still think about Laura, not with anger anymore. More like watching a storm roll off the horizon, knowing it's moved on but remembering how loud it was when it hit. I don't hate her, but I'll never forget the choice she made to put herself above her family. I've learned that justice doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it shows up in silence, in resilience, in the quiet strength of 2 girls who refuse to let lies define them. And in the peace that slowly, painfully begins to fill the spaces betrayal left behind. I used to think enemies wore different uniforms, that they stood on the other side of a battlefield holding weapons and shouting in another language. I never imagined the person who'd hurt me most would do it from the living room of my own home. What do you do when the person you trusted becomes the one you have to defend your children from, when the threat isn't some distant figure, but someone who once kissed your forehead and made coffee in your kitchen? I still don't have an easy answer, but I know what my daughters did. They stood beside me, not because I asked them to, because they saw the truth for themselves and chose to hold the line. Being a father means more than protection. It means presence. Even when I was half a world away, they still felt me fighting for them. And when the time came, they fought for me too. That's what saved us. Not a judge. Not a verdict. Just love that didn't bend when it was tested. So I'll ask you what I've been asking myself ever since. What would you do if the enemy lived in your own house? Would you freeze fight? But maybe you need to hear the question, because sometimes the hardest battles aren't the ones with bullets and uniforms. They're the ones fought in quiet hallways, over dinner tables, in broken trust and whispered truths. And sometimes the bravest soldiers are just kids who refuse to let betrayal become their story. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you. And I hope you hold your people close tonight. Closer than comfort. Closer than pride. Just close enough that they know who you'll always fight for.